Hello, welcome. Our next speaker today is Amina, Malak, Otto. Amina has a master's in Anglo-Saxon, Norse, and Celtic, second master's in Celtic Studies, and is currently a PhD candidate in Celtic and Gaelic with a focus on Norse themes at the University of Glasgow. Amina has also performed material from folklore and mythology at festivals in Europe and North America, including on this very stage last year. Please welcome Amina Otto.
Thank you all so much for gifting me with your time and attention today, despite the weather. I'd like to welcome you all. This is the first time I've given a lecture of this type at an event like this, so it's really an honor to be here. And I hope to provide you with what I'm hoping will be a very interesting talk that dovetails very nicely with what Matthias was just saying about relationality, resilience, and reciprocity. So I'm going to be talking today on cultivating reciprocal networks of relationship within a society that is so heavily based on transaction. I'd like to start by sending a deep and sincere thanks to all of you who have chosen to give me your time and attention today, to the volunteers and organizers of this incredible event that have allowed us to come together today under this beautiful canopy of our earliest ancestors, to all the people who have shaped my perspectives and helped me bring these concepts that I've been working with for so long into alignment, and to the very special siblings, my older brother and my sister-in-law, ancestors, collaborators, mentors, friends, loved one, many of whom are present today and some of whom are quite distant or no longer with us. So thank you. I've been inspired by the philosophies of Guy Debord, a 21st century French philosopher, Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote the book Braiding Sweetgrass, The Serviceberry, Gathering Moss, and many other very important essays, Tyson Yunkaporta's Sand Talk, and myriad other thinkers, knowledge keepers, and philosophers who work with these topics. So their works form the backbone of my talk today, and I'm not here to give you anything groundbreaking, but hopefully this is a synthesis of many of the concepts that are ruminating around this event anyways. So, I cannot shut up about relational networks of reciprocity, even in casual conversations, so I'm ecstatic to be able to talk about it nonstop today. Reciprocity is a perpetual cycle, so it was difficult to decide where to begin. It's a constantly turning wheel, a dynamic, animated system that creates and sustains itself. It's a web, it's a network, it's a tapestry. And it's this tapestry formed of relationships and exchanges that shape us and the world around us. So where is the beginning of the circle? I apologize if some of this talk seems circular or repetitive, but such is the nature of discussing cycles. The theme of this year's festival is very pertinent to a discussion of reciprocal relationships. The Sacred Grove is a perfect example of reciprocity. As Matthias has reminded us, we've lost many of our ways of interacting not only with each other, but with the natural world. We've forgotten the stories that told us how the world interacted with us and taught us the importance of the plants, animals, and elements. We have lost sight of how the world takes care of us and how we can take care of it. We lost the ways we had of relating to our home and its other inhabitants, and we forgot how to treat each other. Though we may no longer have the knowledge, this concept of the sacred grove symbolizes our indelible connections to the earth, the need to animate and interact with our natural world as equal participants in an exchange. The knowledge is there, and those who hold it are still with us. As Matthias has said, much of it has been monopolized in books that are now accessible. We can talk to each other and learn from each other. We can reanimate this knowledge and make it dynamic once more instead of allowing it to accumulate and be locked away from us. When we treat something as sacred, when we know its stories and what it has done for us, we see within it a kinship, a value equal to or greater than our own. We honor it with offerings and thanksgivings and respect. We treasure it and we take care of it. To exploit or destroy it would be unthinkable. The sacred grove shelters us and gives us a place to gather, such as here, to reflect, to direct our generosity and gratitude, to receive teachings in medicine, to keep the stories that show us how to be. It is where we participate in ritual that reminds us of our place in the world. We have forgotten much about our role in nature and how to interact with those non-human neighbors who shape us as much as we shape them. We are a sum of our relationships, and so is everything in this world. Within the context of the Sacred Grove, I hope that this talk will provide a starting point, provide you with maybe not the first, then the next step that Matthias has laid the groundwork for in his previous talk. So I'm hoping that this will help shift our perspective and reforge some of the bonds that have been sundered by the isolating forces of industry, urbanity, and a world of commodity. What I wish to share with you today is not a new idea. In fact, these notions lie at the heart of almost every ancient worldview and every existing indigenous code of conduct today. They form the core of our earliest ways of being, of interacting with the world and each other. Vestiges of these ideas still linger in our civilized Western rules of etiquette and in our instinctual, intuitive tendencies in relationships. I do not purport to blow your mind with groundbreaking new knowledge. I only hope to turn your attention to something that you probably already know. To help begin to move yourself through a world that is more alive and more enchanted than we are conditioned to think it is, I invite you to participate authentically and actively in this cycle of generosity, gifts, and gratitude in your own life, in your own community, and however it behooves you personally. This is not a how-to manual. This is just to get you thinking about these things and how it relates best to yourself. Again, it's all relational. We are all nothing more or less than the sum of our relationships, and it is vital that we not only understand the importance of how these relationships operate, but also recognize how to begin to heal those which have been damaged or lost. When I look around right now, I already see reciprocal relationships at work. I'm a very fortunate member of this Cascadian Midsummer community that already operates on generosity, gifts, and gratitude. And so are all of you who sit and stand before me. So, thank you to this amazing community. I have benefited enormously from the generosity of many community members here today, and without their gifts, I could not do this. I flew in from overseas. I live in Scotland, and it's impossible to fly with any camping gear. It's a big pain. I've received food, shelter, miscellaneous bits of necessary equipment, knowledge, laughter, this beautiful handcrafted staff, which was a gift freely given and one that I treasure. Not to mention the excellent company, and all of this given from the hearts and hands of people at this festival. I have heard birdsong and felt both rain and sunshine on my face, probably more rain than sunshine, but... I speak to you here in the presence of some of the first people, the standing people, our earliest ancestors, our closest family members. I have seen shrines adorned with flowers and fire and bones, and heard music and dancing, and seen people come together to erect a beautiful pole and hear words of wisdom from an ancestor that now belongs to all of us. Some gifts were offered, and some I asked for and received. Many other gifts, both material and intangible, have been given to me surrounding this one single weekend-long event. I feel wealthy. I feel overwhelmed with the abundance and comfort and convenience. What can I possibly give back in the face of this overwhelming generosity? I can only begin with what I always have within my power to give, a heartfelt expression of gratitude. And gratitude of the individual is where I shall begin the discussion of this cycle. We are likely all very aware of the differences between a reciprocal exchange and a transactional exchange, but it can be hard to pin down exactly where that difference lies. Transaction and reciprocity are both forms of exchange. They both fulfill needs. They both participate in moving energy and matter from one place to another. Items change hands, time is spent, connections are formed, interactions occur. Each party usually walks away with something they desired. Transactions are, in some ways, reciprocal, and reciprocity is a form of transaction. So how do we differentiate them? Gratitude is one of the main key distinguishing factors. Gratitude is necessary for reciprocity, but not for transaction. A transaction is a stagnant set of scales, ostensibly equally weighted, but with a proclivity to shift out of balance, become one-sided, or leave one party feeling exploited or cheated in some way. Transactions involve contracts, currency, ownership, and things. They can be carried out between perfect strangers who remain perfect strangers afterward. A single transaction can occur in isolation and has a set start and end point with all loose threads neatly tied up. Reciprocity is much more dynamic and self-sustaining. The cycle of generosity and gratitude, gifting and receiving, creating relational networks whose bonds are upheld not on transaction, but on reciprocity that fulfill a community's needs is just that, a cycle. A two-way thread of giving and receiving that sustains itself and does not exhaust either side, but branches and grows, operating on a network of connecting threads, creating that tapestry of reciprocal cycles, the very woven fabric of community. Gratitude can be found in both the giving and receiving of gifts and moves in both directions along the exchange. It is always present in reciprocity, and it is the key to moving away from transaction. It's the first step that we can take in shifting our perspective in this world dominated by colonialism, capitalism, and every other word. Gratitude is what we always have and what we can always give. No one can take that away from us. When we give gratitude, there's only more gratitude in the world. A world devoid of gratitude is a very uncomfortable world to live in, and I believe we can all feel its effects. Transactional exchange stems from the same worldview that allows us to see the abundance of the earth as inanimate heaps of matter waiting to be transformed into wealth through the alchemy of capitalism. This is the same force that turns trees into lumber, that turns land into property, and allows us to turn oceans into dumping grounds. It transforms what should be treated as gifts into consumable commodities and makes everything, ourselves included, an exploitable resource. Though I will not spend too much time dwelling on this all too ubiquitous entity spawned from the myopa of capitalism and colonial amnesia that has shaped much of the world we know today, I will name it as Guy Debord does in his Society of the Spectacle and call it the spectacle. The spectacle contains with it the mindless consumption of Wendigo, the ravening avarice of Fenris Wolf, the destructive forces that do not allow creation to flourish in its wake, but instead leave a swath of emptiness behind it as it rips through the world, that which depletes without replenishing. It is that which separates us by encouraging us to interact with images and representations instead of participating actively and authentically in our own very lives. The spectacle deprives us of experiencing that which is real, and a society of the spectacle cannot sustain reciprocal networks of relationships because it relies on the illusion of abundance, false needs, and false promises, a lack of vulnerability between individuals, those barriers between us that Matthias mentioned. I name it only because I refer to it so much throughout this talk, but it is not my focus today. And if you want to talk more about the spectacle or anything brought up that is not adequately discussed, please come find me and I will happily pontificate. Trust is a second distinguishing factor between transaction and reciprocity, which is also dissolved by the spectacle, just like generosity is, and gratitude. How can one know what or whom to trust when the world is presented in images and broken promises? Transaction operates entirely on the basis that neither party can be trusted to behave with integrity. If we do not trust each other, then we must protect each other from ourselves. We isolate ourselves because we do not believe that others will behave responsibly if we are generous. So we must try to control the exchange as much as possible until trust is rendered unnecessary for the exchange to occur. We do this by drawing up contracts or using currency as a representation of value instead of giving anything that contains its own worth. by removing all spontaneity and trying to acquire as much as possible while giving as little as possible, because you cannot trust the community to take care of you if you give away too much. Transactional exchanges create distance and sterilize the interaction, depriving both parties of even the chance of demonstrating generosity or gratitude. Reciprocity requires trust and integrity and authentic sincerity. It requires trust that generosity will be rewarded in kind and not exploited. Trust that your fellows will respect your gift and treat it with honor. Trust that abundance will be shared and not accumulated. A society devoid of trust cannot support reciprocity. Transaction is nothing more than the representation of reciprocity in a world dominated by the spectacle, but it cannot replace the real thing. It is an insidious substitute that unifies us only in our complete separation from each other. Our economy, and therefore our society, operates on transactional exchanges that need neither trust nor gratitude. To use sociological terms, a capitalist society or wage economy is transaction-based, where a gift economy is rooted in reciprocity. In the former, you must be on one side of the equation. You are either providing goods and services or you are purchasing them. You are either product or consumer, supply or demand. It is a binary system that does not allow for any kind of fusion between the two. The illusion of balance and benefit must be maintained on both sides, yet both sides are operating from a place of assumed exploitation. Both parties walk away from a complete transaction, feeling that nothing is owed to the other and all ties are severed. This transactional thinking has even bled into our etiquette around gift giving and how reciprocity is perceived in much of our world today. Gifts come with certain immediate expectations, demands, and strings attached. I gave you this, so you owe me that. What do you bring to the table? What's in it for me? A transaction is what happens when both parties are trying to exert as much control as possible over the other. They are fertile ground for entitlement and resentment, and fallow ground for relationships and fulfillment. You may be able to buy what you need with money, but isolation and separation remain in the wake of transaction. It ensures that no bonds are formed, and it removes all responsibility and accountability. Genuine gratitude is rendered unnecessary in a transaction because it is never meant to continue past one completed exchange at a time. How many times have we seen a notification that says your transaction is complete or successful transaction? Transactions can be completed. Reciprocity can be sustained. When viewing the concept of transaction from this large-scale perspective, it feels utterly hopeless to imagine enacting any change on how the global economy works. And in that, I agree with you. I'm right there. But I'm not here to talk about global economics. I'm here to discuss relationships and how we can cultivate reciprocity when the spectacle urges us to operate in transactions. Transaction feels uncomfortable in close relationships because it is designed to be impersonal. I think it is likely that we have all experienced the specter of transaction in close relationships before. Parents demanding gratitude from their children for raising them, a person buying their date dinner with expectations of what will occur later on, a friend doing us a favor only to turn around and say, "You owe me." Many of us feel uncomfortable receiving gifts because we then feel obligated or indebted to the giver. Generosity and gifts within a transactional or capitalist economy have become a manipulation tactic of which we are rightfully suspicious. Or when a gift is freely offered, it is hoarded and kept and not used or shared as it was intended. The world of transaction is a world of commodity, is a world not of community, respect, or relationship, but of commodity, consumption, and exploitation. The quid pro quo worldview has so thoroughly warped how many of us approach these essential elements of reciprocity that it is difficult to imagine how to behave generously without being viciously exploited. When the world tells you to consume, it is difficult to ignore the threat of scarcity and remember to take only what you need. How can we know how much we need when the only need we know is artificial, manufactured by spectacle, the representation of real needs? How can we freely give when the world only tells us to take? Transaction allows us to look at each other and look at this beautiful world around us and view these inanimate resources as just that, inanimate, dead, useful. They are commodities to be owned, bought, and sold instead of fellow people or gifts and abundance. It allows us to assume that if we can take it, it is ours with no consequences, and we can take as much as we want, more than we need. And then what we do with it is up to us, and we have no responsibility because we own it. Purchased goods, or any item acquired through transaction, tend to accumulate and not be shared among community because the transaction stops with a single changing of hands. It does not continue the way that a cycle of reciprocity does. Transaction is a form of exchange based on fear and scarcity or manufactured need. It creates more transactions, and we are told we need more things, but it cannot truly connect us. It has no place in relationships because relationships must be reciprocal to be sustainable. So how do we move from transactional to reciprocal? We can start with reintroducing gratitude, as that is something that we all have and that cannot be taken away, and there is no scarcity of it. While we cannot demand gratitude from others, we can decide to express it and begin our own cycle of reciprocal relationships. Intrinsically, we feel that relationships are unsatisfying and unsustainable if they are not reciprocal, especially if gratitude is absent. Most of us has likely experienced that too. A romantic relationship or friendship where one party consistently puts in more effort than the other. A job where your work seems to go unnoticed and unappreciated. We feel taken for granted, dehumanized in a way, reduced to an inanimate resource. Without gratitude, even humans can be commodified, and on a deep level, we feel how wrong that is. But just as transaction has infiltrated our perception of reciprocity, vestiges of reciprocity have anchored themselves in our social conduct despite our transactional world. We innately know the rules of giving and receiving, and it affects us when they are not properly observed. Theft is a crime. When we take without giving or asking, it is wrong. When we take more than is offered, it is considered rude or impolite. There is a whole industry around thank you cards and flowers. Simple manners such as saying please and thank you demonstrate our intrinsic need to recognize a gift, a service, or kind gesture with gratitude. Even something as small as holding the door for a stranger or letting someone into the lane on the highway creates a brief moment of fellowship. But if it is not returned with some acknowledgement, such as the communal highway wave, it wounds and enrages us. Being kind or generous does not entitle us to another person's gratitude or generosity, but we do notice when we do not receive it back. We feel discomfort when the relationship is not reciprocal, and we perceive the non-reciprocating party as rude because they did not behave properly. We have no control over how the other party will act, but that lack of control is why trust is essential in reciprocity, but not transaction. Neither party is completely in control in a reciprocal exchange, and that is the beauty of it. Lack of control requires trust. It requires demonstrating responsible behavior and integrity on both sides. Generosity in a transactional context, a context devoid of gratitude, will be abused. The generous one will be exploited and depleted. Some may begin to feel entitled to the gifts being given or attempt to control the source of the gifts. Entitlement, exploitation, and control have no place in reciprocity, and gratitude is the first line of defense against them. It is what recognizes the other participants in an exchange and acknowledges their agency and acknowledges their generosity and acknowledges their kinship that you feel with them. There are ways to responsibly give and receive, to maintain the balance in a way that does not sever bonds, but forms and sustains them. A freely offered gift does not mean that it does not come without expectations, but I'm not talking about the transactional expectations I've just listed. I'm referring to a set of responsibilities that lie at the core of reciprocal relationships. Gratitude is the appropriate and expected response to a gift, but for a relationship to be truly reciprocal, it has to be reciprocated with a gift. Both the gift and the giver take on a new significance to the receiver and vice versa. By offering something as a gift and receiving it as such, it ceases to be a commodity. You cannot steal or purchase that which is freely given, that which is a gift. You cannot exploit genuine generosity. If it is not reciprocated, it is ceased. It is depleted. We are no longer allowed access to it. You do not take a gift, you receive it. Gifts are the vectors of both generosity and gratitude, and the cycle of gifting and receiving creates a feedback loop that grows and sustains and creates abundance. Generosity induces gratitude, and gratitude induces generosity. We are far more likely to be grateful for a gift given to us than a commodity we purchase in a transaction. We treat that gift with respect and reverence more than property that we own. So what happens when we start to tally the gifts we have already received, to show gratitude for them, to view them as gifts that we have accepted, and we now have a responsibility to the givers of these gifts? We begin to behave responsibly and maintain a balance that is not determined by a single isolated transaction, but an ongoing series of equal, sustainable exchanges of gifts, given in generosity and received with gratitude. A community built on reciprocal gifting and generosity, this gift economy I've mentioned, is not one of boundless altruism where everyone is entitled to take whatever they want. A reciprocal network has its own mechanisms to ensure proper conduct is maintained around giving and receiving. It is based on action and reaction, the active participation of all parties involved, and if a member of the community does not behave responsibly, the consequences for that behavior occur. Reciprocity operates for negative exchanges as well as positive. We have many familiar adages and axioms and terms that illustrate these fundamentals of reciprocity. What goes around comes around. Treat others how you want to be treated. You reap what you sow. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. The whole idea of karma. Havamal says, a gift demands a gift in return. Physics says every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Alchemy says humankind cannot gain anything without first giving something in return. To obtain, something of equal value must be lost. If we are to make any use of these concepts, we must first understand how they operate when they are applied. What do they look like in motion? It is not sufficient to simply write down 5 things we are grateful for every day and pat ourselves on the back. Gratitude remains inanimate if it is never shared, for it itself is a gift that must be passed along and not accumulated. It is an act. Saying thank you is like saying I love you or I'm sorry. You have to actually mean it. You have to mean it and you have to show it, not just tell. You have to demonstrate it. Gratitude is a practice, an active force that must be shown. It is a choice of perspective, to use Robin Kimmerer's terminology. Stories of the land and the beings with whom we share it can help animate that perspective, to flesh it out and contextualize it, to demonstrate this cycle of reciprocity in action. These stories can connect us to our immediate other-than-human neighbors. To know how to apply these concepts and receive the teachings necessary to uphold reciprocal relationships, we need stories. Stories remind us how to behave, how to treat each other, and what happens to us when we forget or deliberately break the codes of responsibility that uphold reciprocity. They inform our rituals and our worldviews, the way we move through this earth. They are essential for shaping our perspective and much needed if we are to make a choice and shift our perception. We have myths that describe the creation of the land on which we walk, legends of the interactions and exploits of heroes and more than human beings who shaped our world, tales that tell us why we do things and how we do them and what not to do, stories that connect us to the landscape around us and teach us how to be in it. Let them shape you as the land has shaped them. Without stories, we lack the knowledge systems necessary to engage with not only each other, but with our home where the stories were made. Stories bring the world to life and infuse it with an enchantment that shows us how to interact reciprocally. Stories demonstrate proper behavior and provide us with what we need to know. We've forgotten many of these stories, but not all are lost, and perhaps it is time to make some new ones based in these systems of knowledge. Make your own stories with the beings around you. That's a great place to start. Earlier this year, my old grade school held a funeral for a tree that stood in the courtyard for decades. Everyone would go out and eat lunch beneath this enormous poplar tree, and they had to cut it down because it was diseased. The whole community felt its loss. Students and teachers gathered around it one last time to sing the tree songs, play it music, tell it how much we enjoyed eating our snacks in the shade and clambering up its branches. We reminded the tree of how much we loved it and how it fit into our family at this school. We mourned it when it was gone. I actually shed tears when I read the announcement in the annual school email. It was a sacred tree to all who attended this small school, and it is sorely missed. This is a story that I have with this tree, these memories that have shaped me and the world around me. Learn the stories of your other-than-human neighbors and make memories with them. Learn the stories of Sky Woman, Raven, of Thor, of Pe Ell and Rhiannon, of Ra and Horus and Hathor, of Anansi, Gilgamesh, Hanuman, Coyote, Sigurd, Ainu, and Yggdrasil. Learn the dryads and the selkies and why we leave fresh milk outside the door on certain nights, or what happens when a fox crosses running water in moonlight, or why rowan tree protects us. Learn why we use tobacco and sweetgrass as offerings and why mistletoe is Baldur's bane. Learn why we celebrate the flooding of rivers, the generosity of geese, the longest night and the successful harvest. Learn why that tree stands crooked on that hill and why there is a hole in that stone. Learn the stories of your home. These stories not only supply us with the knowledge of reciprocity, but with the system in which it can operate. Allow yourself to be enchanted by them and allow them to enchant the world around you. They are a strong antidote to the commodification and transaction that this society pushes on us. These stories tell us about the gifts we have, how to receive them, and how to say thank you the proper way. If you receive a gift, return it with a gift. If you go to ask for something, bring an offering. Demonstrate your gratitude with a gift of your own. We must understand this deeply and almost without thinking. We expect our generosity to be met with gratitude, our gifts to be returned, not out of any sense of entitlement or ulterior motives behind the gifting, but because that is how we recognize each other as active participants in the reciprocal relationship. We feel it deeply when reciprocity is absent. As I've already said, if you are grateful for something, you will treasure it. If you receive something as a gift, you are less likely to exploit or abuse it. If you offer a gift, you are establishing a bond which you can expect to have returned to you. If you know the stories, you have the relationships. Genuine gratitude will lead you to return the generosity by caring for both the gift and the giver, and by contributing your own gifts in a way that is appropriate to the relationships you have. If you engage in a reciprocal relationship, gratitude is the force that keeps in check the eroding forces of the spectacle and ensure responsible behavior. It keeps at bay our desire to selfishly exploit or take more than we need, to take the first or the last, to hoard and to accumulate. Gratitude is the first tool that we have to disperse these ideas that have accumulated within a capitalist format. If you engage in a reciprocal, If we practice not only our relationships with other human beings, but also with the plants who give us food, shelter, and medicine, with the animals who give us the lives so that we may live, with the waters that cleanse and hydrate us, even a little more than we may want, with the air that fills our lungs, with the land that shapes and holds us, we begin to see how wealthy we actually are and how we belong to the earth. The spectacle, that breeding ground of transactional relationships, both generates and sustains itself on manufactured need that can never be fulfilled. This leads to an endless attempt to fulfill that false need through transaction after transaction, blinding us to the gifts and depriving us of our own gratitude and generosity. Tyler Durden summed it up most succinctly in Fight Club when he said, and I paraphrase, "We are working jobs we hate to buy shit we don't need. We're the middle children of history, no purpose or place, and we're very pissed off." It can feel awfully silly to be thanking the trees or the wind or your morning eggs when you're working an unfulfilling job to pay for rent and necessities. Reciprocity will not operate on a large scale anytime soon, but perhaps it doesn't need to. We have the choice to cultivate reciprocal relationships in our immediate community, and perhaps it has the potential to spread. Even if it doesn't, the world is a better place for it. If we start demonstrating genuine gratitude and treating what we receive as gifts, we start to see the world around us as much more alive. By thanking the trees of the sacred grove, we are saying that we recognize our kinship with them, and we will take care of them as they have taken care of us. By thanking the animals that give us their bodies as food, their presence as companionship in our homes, and their strength to pull plows or carry us across land, we are acknowledging their gifts and promising to behave responsibly. When we give offerings in ritual or in habit, we are establishing a bond of reciprocity that will be returned. When we treat the world around us as alive and active participants in reciprocal exchange, when we know its stories, it becomes enchanted and we can feel it. This brings me to the end of my talk today, but before we open the floor to questions, I would like to do two things. The first is to read you Robin Kimmerer's Code of Responsible Harvest from her book Braiding Sweetgrass, which reminds us of the duties of reciprocal relationships and illustrates responsible behavior, especially as it pertains to our natural world. Know the ways of the ones who take care of you so that you may take care of them. Introduce yourself. Be accountable as the one who comes asking for a gift. Ask permission before taking. Abide by the answer. Never take the first, never take the last. Take only what you need. Take only that which is given. Never take more than half. Leave some for others. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. Use it respectfully. Never waste what you have taken. Share. Give thanks for what you have been given. Give a gift in reciprocity for what you have taken. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. The second is a sending of our thanks out into the world, which will be led by my partner, Josh Root. Normally, this is how we begin our rituals, by sending out thanks for the gifts we have received and beginning our ceremonies with gratitude in our hearts and minds. What?
Thank you.
Participate by simply saying, after I say it, a gift for a gift. That's all you have to do. We send our thanks to your earth. You are our mother, and you give us everything that we need. ACA to give us gift. A gift for a gift.
ACL till Gillisgöf.
We send our thanks to our uninvited spirits of the land. You protect yours, and you show us how we should use it. ACA to give us gift.
ACL till Gillisgöf.
Send our thanks to the plants. You give us shelter. You give us medicine. You give us food. The greatest plant is Yggdrasil. And our oldest ancestors are the trees, ash and elm. You are our oldest teachers. And the trees still have a lot to teach us. They say to give us good.
ACL till Gillisgöf.
Send our thanks to the animals. Animals of the wild. Animals of the air. Animals of the water. Animals that we share our homes with. Animals who give their lives so that we can eat. You're our siblings.
Ese tigiliskuf.
We send our thanks to the waters. You fall from the leaves of Yggdrasil. You flow from the antlers of the great stag, Eikfitni. You fill the rivers. You fill the streams. You fill the seas. You fill us and are a part of us. Ace to give us gift.
Ese tigiliskuf.
Send our thanks to the winds and the great eagle, Kreisfelder, who sends them. You move the weather, you turn the seasons, you fill our lungs. Ace to give us gift.
Ese tigiliskuf.
We send our thanks to the dead. You shape the world that we see, we walk on your bones. You gifted us sacred stories and language that we can use to pass those stories on. It's our responsibility to you to continue to tell those stories. Der Pie, der Freinder, der Sjálfur Sama, every day of aldri day, kommer döden fär. Love fades, family dies, we all, for one day die. But I know one thing that will never die. The renown that each of us leaves. Ace to give us gift.
Ese tigiliskuf.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I think we may have a few minutes for questions or comments. Thank you, Jackie. No? Cool. All right, we've got 10 minutes if anyone wants to share something of their own. This is a reciprocal relationship after all. You gotta give me something back. Thank you. Oh, gosh, wow, deep cuts starting off. The most profound bit of gratitude I've ever given has probably been to my mother. She has been my rock and my teacher in so many ways, and she tells me that I have given back to her by doing exactly what I feel I need to do in this life. She says that's why she gave life to her 4 children in the first place, to have us do what we do best, the best that we can do it. And I think that all of my efforts in community building, academia, writing, learning, interacting with all of you wonderful people is the best way that I can express my gratitude to her, by living well the life that she's given me. Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry, yes.
I just wanted to say I really appreciated that you kind of spoke a little bit about our responsibility to show up on each other. I think one of the things that ties into what we used to say is how important the vulnerability of allowing yourself to be seen by others, but also the ability we have to see each other.
Yes. Yes.
It just creates this sterile cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And so just really encouraging, and it's like something that I've worked on all the time and I'm not good at yet, but just showing up
Yeah.
And you don't have to be afraid of that.
Yeah, and that comes down to the trust and the authenticity. And it's very hard to show up and be vulnerable as yourself in a world that does not necessarily encourage authenticity or vulnerability because it does not encourage trust. So yeah, thank you for highlighting that. Yes. Oh, wait, we had one who went up before you, sorry.
Thank you. That was so beautifully written and spoken. I appreciate your words. Listen, I'm gonna reveal probably my puritanical upbringing, but I feel like I'm here to like clear out some of this.
Yeah, bring it on.
I'm wondering if you can speak to like, okay, so I often feel a really intense like guilt or like painful flashbacks to times that I took without looking back. There's this asparagus plant I once ate in the entirety that haunts me to this day. Asparagus is like that.
Asparagus is vindictive.
I really appreciate your framework, and I'm wondering if you can speak to like outside of the sort of like sin and redemption narrative that I grew up with, the transactional, like you broke it, you fix it, like
Right.
what does reparations look like versus, things or
So yeah, all right, okay. How to address this? So I think you can't change the past, but I think now that you have the knowledge system and you have these concepts of reciprocity that override any transactional or puritanical upbringing, I think the best thing you can do is honestly figure out what reciprocity looks like within your life. And if you do feel the need to plant more asparagus or to repair that and heal that for yourself, that is okay. It doesn't necessarily make it a transaction if you are doing something to directly address something that was done in the past. It is a form of reciprocity. And in moving forward, you're carrying that with you and you're continuing that cycle. If you made mistakes in the past or you acted without knowledge or without the frame of reference for responsible behavior, there's nothing that has to forgive you for that. That's you learn and you put those learnings into action. It has to be an active thing. So I think as long as you act in a way that more closely aligns with how you want to move through the world, that is the best thing that you can do for any overconsumed asparagus. Yeah. Yes, Taj? Oh, wait, no, I'm so sorry.
Well, I think it's kind of ties into what Matthias was saying as well, with the killing of your ego. Like, guilt and shame is just manifestations of our ego. They're not real things.
Yeah.
They're things we do to ourselves. So if we can work on ourselves and deciding to kill your ego is also a manifestation of your ego, but it's a healthier path.
Yeah,
So,
oh, exactly.
I have a Christian upbringing that I had to get over that guilt, those feelings of guilt and shame as well. But you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so two things. One, for guilt and shame, if you feel guilty, apologize.
Yeah.
You can apologize to asparagus that
Yep.
I've done so many times. So, and also for the shame, you can speak of it. Maybe
Yeah.
you speak of it to your ancestors in the trees, or maybe you have some sort of confession with a trusted friend or ally.
Yeah.
And that helps to resolve.
Yeah.
It helps to resolve, and that's the first part, the reciprocity.
Mhm.
And also, there's that exchange.
Yeah.
And sometimes the exchange is painful.
Yes, it's not all going to be easy kumbaya, hug some trees all the time. Apologies are just as important as gratitude, just as important as expressions of genuine authenticity. And again, you have to really mean it, and you have to act like you really mean it too. So yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. That's very important.
And then trust. Trust is not about liking or
No.
not liking. You can trust and not like that person. That the trust goes beyond. It is you expect that other person to fulfill exactly who and what they are.
Yeah.
Whether you love it or whether you don't love it, that in itself
Yes.
is beauty.
This is not about liking each other or getting along. It's about behaving responsibly. Exactly. And as you said, you don't have to personally like someone in order to have a reciprocal relationship with them. So yes, thanks for bringing that up. It's very important. It's not about living in perfect harmony. It's about living responsibly. I mean, we're not necessarily one with nature because we're perfectly happy in it. We can be made miserable by the natural world as well. There's danger, there's inconvenience, there's famine, there's horrible weather, there's damp, there's wet. We desert people don't do well in the wet. But yeah, so it's not about harmony. Does not mean that you like everything all the time and you're constantly happy. It's a harmonious thing can be it's balanced, it's dynamic, but with the good comes the not so favorable. But yeah, it's not about liking or not liking. Trust has nothing to do with that. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes. Are we one more? Okay, perfect. Yeah.
I guess thinking about the concept of the world of transactions, transactionality is, I at times feel I have to introduce myself as a commodity, as a person.
Yeah.
That it's easier for me to give someone a business card and tell who I am and what commodity I buy, rather than actually as a person.
Yeah. So that goes back to this idea of the spectacle that has kind of both created and been created by this capitalist, not to get too Marxist about it, but the separation of the separation of the producer from the product. When you introduce yourself as that, it's probably because you're establishing a relationship that has to be based on transaction anyway. You're probably trying to establish a business network or a way to get something from that person because you feel like you can provide something that they are trying to get from you, and you're trying to have that transactional relationship, which can only kind of exist in the world of commodity and be upheld by that. So it's very hard to break away from that, especially in a corporate environment, because it's all representation. It's not actual authenticity. So I guess it's a necessary evil right now because it is, well, not evil, but it's the way things are right now, and it's the way that we currently have to move through the world. So for that, I would say see what authentic reciprocal relationships you can create in your personal life with people that you feel more comfortable with. If you're introduced to someone through friends, don't hand them a business card. Don't tell them what your job is. Tell them who you actually are and let them know yourself. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. It's hard to break down the transactional world on the large scale economic level, but we can kind of start by cultivating it in our own lives as a baseline. And that might awaken something in you that helps you behave in a way that you feel better about, even in a corporate setting or even in a professional setting. Yeah.
I guess it's breaking away the concept that I'm not allowed to engage in the human experience until I can provide some type of transaction.
Yep, exactly. That's very much putting the cart before the horse in a society of the spectacle, where we should be engaging with people as humans first, and then seeing what gifts we can bring to the community and what gifts we need to receive from the community, instead of saying, this is what I can provide you, please recognize me as a human, based on that perceived value. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for coming and for enduring the rain. Thank you. Love you.